Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. This is Franz Sidney in Create with Franz with Heidi Maddy. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Franz. Thank you very much.
So Heidi is coming all the way from somewhere in England. You just told me and I forgot. Where was that?
Surrey in England.
Sorry, just because I never go. Actually, I'm going soon there, like tomorrow. And yeah, Heidi's going to talk to us about something very interesting that is going to interest a lot of women and maybe men who deal with women a lot. And you know what? Sometimes we don't succeed and we think, well, I need a pill, I need this, I need that. But we have not listened to our body. We have not understood the big connection we have with the universe, even with the moon. And you think, what the heck she's going on about? Let's get Heidi to explain to you what the symptoms are that tell us that we are not listening to our body and how you go to this discovery. It's all yours.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Franz. So, yeah, symptoms. I'm going to start with the biggest one because most people have experienced this. It's burnout. Burnout is the biggest symptom. So, if you find that you are burning out, you're maybe procrastinating, maybe you're getting overwhelmed with daily life, you might be experiencing a lot of stress. You might be lacking your creativity. Maybe you want to do something. Maybe if you have a business, you want to show up, you want to do something in your business and nothing's happening. There's no creativity happening. It's all dried up and you just can't understand. These are all symptoms of what happens when we don't listen to our bodies as women. And not only that, it leads to more. So if we end up in our masculine energy rather than a balance of both, then that's a lot of action taking, right? We take a lot of action all the time. We go, 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 go. What happens is that leads to another way of leading to burnout. And there's only so much go that we can do before we need to sit back and rest and relax and recover. And one thing as women is that we're quite bad at taking that rest and taking that relaxation. And sometimes we feel guilty. We feel guilty for self-care, for taking care of ourselves. And because we're so busy trying to take care of everybody else and all the other things, that trying to make time to take care of ourselves, especially when we've been on the go constantly, just it feels impossible. And when we do, we feel so guilty. And so we either don't do it or we don't do it very well, or we do it very briefly. And all of this accumulates into this massive procrastination where we no longer get done the things that we want to do unless the deadline's looming. So for any of you out there who are kind of what I call last minute Mary, and you leave things to the last minute, and then that deadline's looming, and then you suddenly rushing to get things done. But this is another symptom of it. Maybe you feel really unproductive and you just feel like you are sat at your laptop trying to be productive, trying to get something done, and nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. And you've got this to-do list. This is another one. You've got this massive to-do list that's forever growing. I had my to-do list got so out of hand that I had different books for different to-do lists. It was insane. So yeah, these are some of the symptoms.
A list of a list.
Yes, a list of lists.
In fact, I will admit publicly that I do have such a list.
A list for your lists or just a long to-do list?
I have a list divided by topics.
Yeah.
So one is for my photography business, one for the illustration business, one for the podcast business. And there is a personal, a spiritual, because I have my goals and I want to be organized. As a coach, I have to have a list of things that I want to organize.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So just this morning, I was recording another podcast episode with a lady from here in England, from King's Lynn, which is only less than an hour from here. And she was going on about this, that we need to understand we are supposed to stop and rest and listen to our body and stop feeling guilty. And I was making a note that how can the most men go home, close the door, and they switch persona? It's just another avatar. Now I can relax and they ignore while the woman goes somewhere, yeah, now I have a cleaning, the laundry. So we're
Mm-hmm.
always in do mode. And then we crash and we wonder why we might even end up in a bad mood. So these are the symptoms. What
Mm-hmm.
are the symptoms telling us that is actually going on inside us, in your
Mm-hmm.
experience as a RTT therapist, hypnotherapist, NLP coach? What is that? You have a counselor. So you got a lot of experience, a business coach as well, quite a lot of
Yeah.
experience. So what's going on and which part of us we're not listening to when this is happening? Like we sit there in this dazed, confused state. We know there's a lot of stuff to do. I'm surrounded. I go listen there on my right. I go listen there, but nothing is happening.
Yeah.
So why are we in this freeze mode?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Great question, Franz. And I just want to jump back ever so slightly. What you mentioned there about the guys and then being able to switch off. I have the answer for that. It's something that I teach. I teach this in my training. But I'll come to that a little bit later on
Okay, I'll remind
in
you.
the podcast. I'll explain that for you. But to answer your question, what's going on? Why is this happening to us? Is because we're not in tune with ourselves as women. So what happens is that we are going against our nature. And so for a lot of women, you might find that I would say only 25 to 50% of the time are we in tune with our nature as women and in tune with our bodies. And so that's when you'll know when you're in tune, because things will be really easy for you. So you'll be really productive, you'll be really creative, you'll feel like if you do social media, you'll be able to create your posts or film your reels or do your podcast like you, Franz. There'll be certain situations where that will just seem really in flow, and there'll be other times, and this is I would say 50 to 75% of women right now, or they find that 50 to 75% of the time in their lives is that they're not in tune. Nothing's easy. It always seems like a slog. It seems like hard work. It seems like they're having to force it. It seems like they're having to really try hard. And I call it, you're using 80% of effort to get 20% of result. And actually, we want to be the other way around. We want to be doing 20% of the effort and getting 80% of the result. But most people have this the wrong way around.
And I'm sure if I went and asked a lot of my friends, they are in that mode a lot of the time, and they wonder why.
Yeah,
Listening.
absolutely.
So you learned this through your own experience. How did
Yeah.
you solve the issue? Because you publicly talked about your period when you went all the way up and then busy, 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 and then whoo, crashed down, and then discovered that as a woman you are influenced, for example, by the moon. And people would say, woo, no, 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 it's a moon, it's real. It's not a conspiracy theory, it's right up there if you look.
Yeah.
So how did you discover all this and what's the effect in your life?
Absolutely. So yeah, as you quite rightly said, in my business, I was doing really, really well. I had found, like so many, that I was doing well. My results were growing month on month. I was getting better and better results financially, client-wise, all of that. And it was going really, really well. But it was still up and down. So some months were better than others, and it wasn't consistently going up and it wasn't consistently the same. There was this up and down. And so I decided that actually I was going to do something about this. And so in the mastermind that I was in, I had this opportunity. It was for 100 days, and it was basically to get you to make six figures in 100 days. And so I went into that saying, right, enough of this up and down nonsense. Let's do this. I know I can do it. Let's do this. And it was going through that process and having to show up exactly the same every single day without fail for 100 days. That, well, yes, I got the result. In those 100 days, I did $180,000 in sales in those 100 days. So yes, I hit the six-figure coach mark that I wanted to hit. But the downside to that was that I lost my health. I burnt out massively because I was forcing myself to show up every single day working really long hours in my business every single day and doing all of these things, and it led to this burnout. So I had this massive crash, and there were women and guys all in this experience with me, and even the men burnt out after these 100 days. They just didn't burn out to the extreme that the women burnt out to. So that's important to say, that men do also burn out. But it led to this, and then what created was, it brought back some chronic health conditions. If anyone's listening has ever suffered with burnout, depending on how severe the burnout is and how many times, this was my second time of burning out. I burnt out a few years before as well. Depending on the severity of the burnout and for how long you don't listen to your body for, and the symptoms for, will determine how bad the effects are of this burnout. So mine was really, really bad. It turned into some chronic health problems, like chronic fatigue. It turned into, I already had high stress. There was, being in this really high pressured environment for 100 days where you had to show up, and it was really severe. If I didn't show up when they told me to show up, I would get fined financially. I would have to pay a fine. It was severe. And it was this crazy experience that I went through, but I thank God I went through it, because what it led me to was that women aren't meant to work in that way. And so what happened was, it took 3 months after that for the burnout to really take hold, and these chronic illnesses to sort of come out. And then it took me 6 months to recover from the effects of burnout. And so and then during all of this time, I was doing less and less and less in my business, because I was so physically unwell that I couldn't show up. So I just started, and then I took some time out. And I said, right, I'm putting my business into hibernation for a while. And I allowed things to sell that didn't really require me to show up for. So I was just selling some other of my programs that didn't require me to coach and deliver in person. And then it got to a point where I was on this discovery, and I just said, no more. Not only do I not want to show up in that way, but I don't want to teach women to show up in that way either. I'm done. So I was done. And then I took this time out. I put my business into hibernation, and I just said, I'm done with business for a little while. I'm just going to go live my life and do some research, do some exploration. And this is then where I came across what it was that I was missing as a woman from my life, and what the majority of women are missing. And when I say missing, I don't mean it's missing from you physically right now. I mean the knowledge is missing from you right now, because all of this is within you right now. And so this led me to, well, what is it that's so different about men and women in the way that we can show up and in the way that we can't? And that led me down to researching about women's hormones. And it felt very woo-woo to me. I think I explained this to you before, Franz. It felt very woo-woo. I'm a very practical woman. I've been in my masculine energy, very unhealthily in my masculine energy, since a teenager, for survival reasons throughout my life. From my younger years, there was a lot of survival going on. I'm also a single mum. My son is grown up now, but I was a single mum, and that's very masculine energy when you're a single mum and there's nobody else to help you in that situation. And so I thought incorrectly, because I wasn't educated in this way, that I had masculine energy. I don't have masculine energy. I have a balance of energy. I have masculine and feminine, but I thought that there was something wrong with feminine, and feminine was woo-woo. And it's, the moon and the rituals and dancing around, in long flowing skirts. And that's really not who I am. But then coming out of this, I was researching, and I came across just what being a woman actually means, just what our menstrual cycles mean, just what the moon cycles mean to us as women. And it is this untapped power that we have never been taught. And it's crazy that we don't have this education as women.
Guys, so the next question must be, does the moon hold the secret to women's success? And how are we going to get this power? Do we have to kneel down and worship the moon? What do we have to do? Do we have to take a picture with the iPhone and look at the moon? What?
Yeah,
Tell me, because I
love
know
it.
as a kindergartner, there is a little calendar that tells you if a moon is going up or down, crescent, I don't know all the names and things and the jargon, but I do know about you have to plant when the moon is doing that and that. And as a woman that was born in Sardinia, I remember we were in an island and the water was coming up and then 6 hours was going down. And there are these rhythms of a nation, and all, you know, Italy has these waves coming in and out. And then nature has this 24-hour clock. And I did know that when women are all together in the same room, say they will live in a hotel for a couple of months, all their cycles will align. So how is that possible? So
Yeah.
you hold the answers. You're gonna have to tell us now because we are
Yeah.
curious, you know? How do we get the moon
Wow.
to be our free companion?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the thing. Everything in nature has cycles. It all has cycles. If we think of our seasons, we have spring, summer, autumn, or if you're on the other side of the world, the fall instead of autumn, you say fall instead of autumn,
Wait,
and
do we
winter.
have summer in England?
Well, for maybe 1 or 2 weeks out of the year, we do.
That's the hope.
Most other places have a summer.
It's a pious hope that there is a summer. We attempt to have a summer.
We
It was
attempt to have a summer.
Thursday. It was Thursday in July. That Thursday there.
Exactly. It's a couple of days out of a couple of weeks. That's it. And that's it in the UK. But we have that. Then if we think about plants, they have a growing cycle, right? So that they seed and then they go into full bloom and then we harvest and then the land goes fallow again. If we think of ourselves as women, we also have 4 phases. So we have follicular, we have ovulation, we have luteal, and we have menstrual. So the menstrual cycle is not, it's not all of the menstrual cycle is not menstrual. The menstrual is just one phase, which is for the majority of menstruating age women who do menstruate, it's 1 week out of an entire month. And we're ignoring the rest of the month. So where does the moon come into this? The moon also has 4 phases. So we've got the new moon, the waxing moon, the full moon, the waning moon. That also has 4 cycles. And so where does the moon come in with the menstrual cycle with us as women? Well, depending on whether you are a menstruating woman or of menstruating age or not, you might be pregnant, you might be breastfeeding, you might be in menopause, you might be post-menopause, you might have a health condition that stops you. You would then use the moon cycles and those phases of the moon in place of your menstrual cycle if you don't have one. So it works for all women. It's just depending on whether you actually menstruate or not, depends on whether you follow that or the moon. But also, you can get them to sync. So if we're in sync with the moon, your menstrual cycle would be the new moon. Yeah. So that's when we're sync with the moon. And there was this another lady that kind of teaches this. She's a doctor and her mum's a doctor and teaches about women's health. But she was out on a ship in the middle of the ocean, and the ship was majority women, and nothing in the night sky, no cables, no satellites, nothing. It was just clear night sky out in the middle of the ocean, and most of the women became in sync, that all of their periods started syncing up with the moon, not only with each other but with the moon. And there's always a couple of women who don't sync, and they're on the opposite, so they will bleed on the full moon instead of the new moon. And it's that way in nature. Now, there's been no proof. It's all theoretical as to why women sync. There's lots of theories as to why. But if you think about it, if there's nothing blocking our our ability to see the moon and be in nature and be under the moon, we will sync with the moon. If we're not and it gets blocked, then we might unsync from it. But the reason why some women don't sync is because, well, if we were all of that age and we're all bleeding at the same time, then we're not, that's the majority of women wiped out for a week at a time. So there's always the other women who maybe don't, and they're opposite, and they get to, and we get to take care of each other in that sense. And so that's, as I said, there's lots of theories. There's no definitive proof as to which theory is correct as to why we all sync with each other. But if we look at the moon, I think that's a pretty strong theory as to why we start syncing up in that way. And it's because we're cyclical creatures.
Mm. So if I were to give a suggestion to anyone listening here, so how do we sync with the moon? Do you have to send a message on Facebook? How do we how do we connect?
Well,
AI?
yeah, that's a really, really good question. So here's the thing, and this is as woo-woo as it gets with me. I historically was opposite to the moon. So I bled on the full moon instead of the new moon. And with each phase, as I said, we've got these 4 phases, and they all mean something different for us throughout the month. So if I quickly go through, so follicular is after you've had your period. And so that would be when your energy is starting to increase, you're starting to feel normal again. It's really good for doing, like, starting to, if we think about it as spring. So it's spring. So we're planting the seeds, we're sowing the seeds, we're starting new projects. Ovulation is when we're most outgoing and we're really social, and it's great to show up, do lives, do podcasts, do all of these things, to be really creative, to record things, to communicate. And because if we think about that in nature, when we ovulate, well, as human beings, what's ovulation? Well, it's to procreate. And so we become naturally more attractive. So we should be doing things during that phase for that. Then we go into luteal, which is then the energy starts going down. We're very honest during luteal. So if you find that for a lot of women leading up to their period, they find that, you know, we're more snappy, or we're more straightforward, or we're very direct, or we're very no nonsense. That's why, because we don't have the capacity to deal with nonsense, and we get straight to it. It's the best time for writing your content, because you do not give a crap about what anyone thinks, because you are just writing it straight from the heart. It's perfect for writing content in your luteal phase. And then obviously you have your menstrual, which is your actual period, and that lasts for however long it lasts for you. And that's the time for rest and relaxation. It's the time to recover. It's the time to nourish and really practice self-care. The beauty of that is our hormones are at an all-time low during menstruation, which means that it is the best time to make decisions. It is the best time to analyze. It is the best time to look at everything and say, what's working, what's not, what am I letting go of, what am I going to do more of, and be very, very clear, because our emotions that are affected by our hormones are almost non-existent. And so it's a really great time to be making decisions. And then we go on, and then we're on this cycle. So if we're working against the moon, we might find that it's the moon saying one thing and our cycle is saying the other. So how do we sync up with the moon? Well, this is how I did it. I asked my body. It really is that simple. And this is where we get really, really woo-woo. I wanted to experience what it was like to be syncing with the moon. And because I was opposite, I was finding I was being pulled in 2 different directions. And you've always got to follow what is your body. Above all is what your body says. And I was being pulled in these 2 different directions. And I just wanted to know. So I set the intention that I wanted to sync with the moon. And I have the data, I have my app, because I track my cycle on an app. And from that point onwards, my period actually shifted by a few days each month until I was in pure sync with the moon. And then the first day of my period started with the new moon, and I was completely in sync. And then it was like that for a couple of months. And then I sort of went a little bit out of sync, because my cycle tends to be longer than the moon cycle. So the moon cycle is 28 days, whereas women can cycle for anything up to 34. So mine's a little bit longer, so I get a bit out of sync. And then I have to be careful, because this intention setting is so powerful then I've asked myself, I go a little bit out of sync, I ask my body to sync up, and then it will jump, my period will jump, and then I'm like, no, not yet, not yet, no, I didn't mean right now. And I've had this happen, and as I said, I track my cycle. I literally have the data of where my cycle started shifting by a few days each month until I was completely in sync. How? I don't know. Call it woo woo, call it, I don't know. I set the intention and that's what happened. And I would just say to any woman who wants to try it, just try it and see what happens. But you need to be tracking everything. You need to understand what's going on with your cycle in order for that to happen. But yeah, that's, I don't know if that's a good enough answer for you, Franz, but that's how I did it.
That's a good explanation. And we have enough material here to do some research. And maybe that could explain to some men listening here why their wife is in the mood for certain types of activities, such as
Yeah.
walking or cleaning or being intimate or being creative or being cleaning the house or not,
Absolutely.
or having guests. And it's not because she's snappy, because she's a critical person or because she's lazy person or whatever, but because there is a powerful force of nature acting with her. There's a tsunami of emotion coming through.
Exactly.
Which
Exactly.
of course will influence how she feels. And if she tries to be stuck in the masculine energy, if I understand correctly, then she will be going against her nature, trying to push and push and push to be very masculine,
Yeah.
productive 100% of the time, doing it all. But then she will forget who she is, and then the resentment, the burnout will show up in many ways. And I started to think, and with 2 minutes left over, it's not a topic to touch, but fibromyalgia will go straight under that, because you're the person I know, the men that I know who have fibro, giving, generous, splendid people, giving, they're never stopping. And even when they have a pain, but it's not gonna stop me, they keep going until they end up in hospital, because they just don't stop. They don't listen to their body, they're just going.
Which is most women all the time. And actually, it's interesting that you said that. I was diagnosed with fibro back in 2017.
No way.
And I am going to sit here today and say, I do not have it. I don't have it. It's, I spoke to someone the other day and they said, you can't heal from it. It just goes into remission. I said, I don't have it.
Yeah, the thing is,
It's not something
fibromyalgia
that I have.
is not something that you have a blood test for or whatever. It's your body tensing up all the muscles, and you have all this lactic acid and whatever. Even Mike Mandel had it, and he said, "Hey, I'm a hypnotherapist. What am I gonna do here?" And he got rid of it. And it's your body saying, "Hey, you're not listening to me, and I'm gonna make you listen. If you don't listen, it's gonna be worse until it's so tough and painful." And I'm sorry you had it, but obviously you went
I don't know.
through and you
Yeah,
understood you have to listen to the body.
absolutely. And
Yes, it's
it's
incredible.
it is absolutely. And I would say to anyone listening that suffers with that, look at your nervous system. You'll be very much stuck in your sympathetic nervous system, and you need to get into your parasympathetic nervous system if you want to start seeing relief.
And we need to shake off this syndrome. We do not have to be like men. We do not have to work with our own rhythm. And that's why I see a lot of corporate burnout, the women that dress like men, act like men, they're very tough. But we don't have to be like that. I know that to succeed, but eventually something's gonna give,
It does. And there's actually been studies that have proven that 64% of women in the corporate world burn out compared to 37% of men.
Yeah.
So it's actually there's been quite a few studies now that have proven that women burn out at higher rates to men. And if I go into that actually and just explain a little bit about that. So women, we cycle on a month, depending on with your moon, you're going to be about 28 days. If you're following your own cycle, your menstrual cycle, you could be anywhere from 24 to 34 days. So you have to understand how long your cycle is. Men are on a 24-hour cycle. So women are on a monthly cycle, men are on a 24-hour cycle, which means that if you are comparing yourself to your male family members, partners, colleagues, whatever, If you're ever wondering why men can show up exactly the same every single day and just keep getting up and doing the same thing day in, day out, why they get better results daily to women, it's because their hormones literally refresh every 24 hours, whereas us women, we refresh every month. So, and that's whether you're menstruating or not, whether you're menstruating or whether you're with the moon, we cycle every month. And so that's why men are different. And it also, when you asked about why men can come in and switch off, men have what's called a single focus, and women have what's called a diffused focus. So men are they have a focus, and they can only see, they have this tunnel vision, and they can only see what is necessary to hit the goal of the focus that's in front of them. Us women will walk through. So if you walk through from your living room, in my house, I go through my living room to get to my kitchen, I can see everything out of place. And when I'm cleaning, I'm picking up that and doing this and picking that and taking that and then going back to there and doing that, because we have diffused focus, which means that we see everything. Whereas guys don't see the dirty pair of socks or the wet towels that they've left on the floor, because their focus is not on clearing up the dirty socks or the wet towels. Their focus is on getting ready for work and getting out the door. And that's why they don't see it, and that's why we do.
I know. It's like the single point focus in your Canon camera. You click and there's one thing and it will hit that. But we have 48 points. 48 points. We're hitting
we have
everything.
The speed shutter going off.
the red little dot goes toot, 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 toot. And that's why you go to a room to pick up something, and by the time you're there, you have done 100 things, and you're like, why did I come here? Oh yeah, I picked up a sock, I cleared the table, I moved the chair, turned off a radiator.
Exactly.
Why am I here?
Exactly. But do you know that we are better at those things, like men, during our ovulation phase, because that's when we get the boost in testosterone. That's when we as women get our shot of testosterone, is through the ovulation phase. And that's why that is that action taking phase. That's why we've got the most energy. That's why we're the most magnetic. That's why we just get everything done. If you've got a to-do list, knock it out in your ovulation phase, you will smash it. But this is why when we tap into what is our powers, because it's different for each of the 4 phases, when we tap into that and our energy levels, this is where we get to what I said earlier on, which is when we put in 20% of the effort and get 80% of the result. Because when we align what we're doing to these 4 phases, it'll be really, really easy for you, and you'll get incredible results. And this is where now, this is what I teach. This is what I show women how to do, how to tap it. And this is within us. You have it within you. I have it within me. Or women have it within them. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, we haven't been educated about this. No. And not many women have this education. But it is literally there for any of us to tap into anytime we want to. All we need to do is learn about it.
Wow. Yeah, time to go, but we could be talking about this for the whole day. Women listening to this, and husbands, boyfriends, sons.
Yeah.
There is a lot here to talk about, and I'm sure you have 100 million questions, so you can find Heidi Maddy in the links that we are going to post under this episode on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram, and Facebook. Ask her. She has also websites and links and Calendly links and whatever, so you can talk to her and find out more, because I'm sure that if you had tried everything and nothing is working, this could be the day that you realize, I have not listened to my own hormonal and moon-based cyclical changes that are so important for my mood, my energy, and everything. So thank you so much for being with us today, Heidi.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, and I'm so sorry that I have to finish because I made a promise to myself, half an hour. So the attention span, but I'm quite sure YouTube will show me a very high attention span for this episode, because it's a great episode. And all the information is for you guys to share with all your friends. So click, subscribe, like, do everything you want so that we can be seen by more women and they can have more success in their life. So thank you so much, everyone, and see you all next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.